Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Well, we all know that standard, a little bit wonky right now. Things not going so fantastic in that realm. But I did want to talk about something fantastic that does exist in the realm of standard. We've seen some cards that have been pushed too far, that don't hit the right spot. We're going to talk about a card that hits the sweet spot. Honestly, I am genuinely impressed with this card on multiple levels. So with no further ado, let us get it up on the screen. Let's put it up on the screen. Mystical Dispute. Well, bet you weren't expecting this random card. Unless you looked in the thumbnail, then it's probably pretty obvious this was going to be the card. So, 1 blue, 2 colorless, or generic mana, as the kiddies like to call it. So, 1 blue, 2 colorless. This is an instant. This is a counterspell, very clearly. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 colorless. And the flavor text says, "Poor lost mage, your feet are on land, yet you're in over your head, aren't you?" Now this card is nailing it in a number of different ways. One of the reasons that really made me want to talk about it is how it's organically growing in the financial aspect, right? Like we'll have a bunch of different cards in Magic where we'll see crazy spikes in the price, where all of a sudden the price is just bazoom through the roof in like one day, just like snap your fingers and it skyrockets. What I like to see is more of a little up incline kind of craggy mountain where you can see it slowly kind of moving upwards based on more of an organic demand, as opposed to a few buyers just coming in and going, "I'm gonna lay a bunch of cash on the table and buy a ton of these up." Because that's somebody hoping that the card will become something and trying to make some money off it, as opposed to a card that's currently available that has found itself a home in multiple formats. And Mystical Dispute has done so. It has found itself a home in multiple formats quite nicely. It is doing well in Standard, it is doing well in Modern, and Pioneer. So we've got 3 different formats where this card is happily nestled. Now, admittedly, this is in some cases just going to be a sideboard card. Its power level is much stronger against a blue deck than anything else. And I've always found cards that mess with their own color to be interesting. It's almost like a traitorous effect where you're like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be on the same side. Most things won't affect cards of their own color. This specifically targets cards of its own color. Now, the flavor behind it is clearly like a wizard battle, right? And the Mystical Dispute makes perfect sense in blue. Right? It would be like in other colors. In green, it would be like, "Oh, we're going to punch each other in the face." And in red, it would be like, "We're going to set each other on fire." In blue, it's like, "I'm going to cancel out what you're doing. I'm going to quell your magic. I'm going to dissipate what you do." That sort of thing. It's very, very blue. So the flavor is on point from the concept of a Mystical Dispute. The idea that this is a counter that you can use on anybody, but is particularly honed towards blue mages, the idea, like, what sort of mage is going to create a spell like that, where they're like, okay, I want to have the ability to stop other spells from occurring, kind of leech mana out of them, because that's the sort of effect that I view these kind of cards to have, where it's like, the original way that we saw this kind of an effect really is in Mana Leak. I mean, there are creatures that had abilities way back in the day similarly, but Mana Leak is a blue and a colorless, target a spell, counter it unless the controller pays 3. So this is very much in that Mana Leak fashion. And I like the idea of kind of a mage finding a way to reach into the weft of magic, poke holes into your opponent's spell so they become less efficient. And yes, you can make it work, but you've got to fill it with more mana. You've got to put more magical power into it. It's almost like if you've ever watched something in a comedy where a boat starts springing leaks and they've got to poke their fingers into different holes, or there's like a dam that's about to burst and they've got to like put their hand over one crack, but then water starts springing up from somewhere else, they got to put another hand there. It's kind of that feel to it, where they don't have the ability to fully cancel out your magic, but they can just drag the magic down, drain it, cause it to be less efficient, and you have to force more magical power into it to actually achieve the goal that you want. So that's a cool concept to begin with. But to think about the type of mage that would say, okay, I want to go ahead and actually make it more difficult for people who wield the same sort of magic that I do. I want to make this more effective, where it's like, okay, this is going to work on all types of spells, but when it comes to other people who use the same type of magic as me, I want it to be that much more efficient. Does that come from a place of somebody who despises other blue mages? Does it come from an innate understanding of blue magic? So, okay, somebody casts a red spell or a green spell, and yes, you understand spells enough to be able to counter them, to poke holes in them, to force the mages to cram more magical energy into them, but they're still alien to you in a way because you're a blue mage. So green and red magic are very different. You're not used to wielding the chaotic fire magic, so your mind can't wrap your head around it the same way. Or you're not used to the being in tune with nature magic, so again, you can't wrap your mind around it the same way. You know how to distort and disrupt their spells, but you don't have the innate, intimate knowledge that you would have of blue magic. So this is just more effective on blue mages, hence the fact that the spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell. You know blue magic inside and out. This is the magic of the mind. This is your house, and you know how best to run it. I like that as a flavor concept. Overall, that works very well. And speaking of flavor concepts, the art, oh God, the art on this card is absolutely incredible. Not only is it beautiful, but it conveys what's going on so well. I mean, when you look at it at first, what do you have here? You have this sort of peaceful looking nature setup, right? You can see the trees off in the background. You can see the kind of mossy, undisturbed rocks. This is not a place where humans are all the time, right? This is set in eldraine, and eldraine has a certain part of the world that's been carved out by humans. But a lot of the world is still given over to the wilds, and the wilds are just that, wild. But unlike the wilds on Earth, where you just have to worry about bears like bears, animals like bears and other things coming at you, like, oh, maybe there's a snake out in the woods, maybe there's a bear. Well, the wilds out in eldraine actually have mystical creatures. So you got to worry about crazy stuff coming at you. 4-legged, tentacled howlbacks are one of the things. And if you don't know what that is, well, me and AetherHub are working on a lore series. And we will have the 3rd video in the Eldraine lore series coming out very soon on his channel. So I encourage you to head on over to his channel in the next week or so to see that happen. I'll post when it's out. But either way, that'll be coming along. The point I'm trying to make is the wilds are full of mystical creatures. You never know what you're going to run into. So this artwork has that sort of wild, untouched by man effect. If people walked by here all the time, you wouldn't have this moss growing up on the rocks and everything. And also, I mean, this moss has to be coming from the water to a degree. We can see we have a merfolk lady who has emerged from the water. She's got that sweet curve to her booty. I noticed. I don't know if I would hit a merfolk, but I mean, she makes me want maybe I got a different way to solve this dispute, honey. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, she's popped up out of this water. The water in the area is probably the reason as well that you see that green mossiness on the rocks. I like the fact that the little plants down in the bottom right-hand corner have little glowing motes. I like that. Are those actually like fruits or flower blossoms? It's got this nice little like enchanted kind of feel to it, right? Like you're wandering through enchanted lands. So we take a look closer in what's going on. You've got this merfolk who's an undine, because the undine are the type of merfolk that exist in eldraine. They've got like, I don't know, they've got a particular look to them that make them look a little more menacing and less friendly than certain variations of merfolk. But you can see what's going on here. We've got what is clearly a castle Ventress mage, and Ventress is where the blue mages, the knowledge seekers, are. Now he's all hunched forward. At first, if you look at this artwork without really paying attention, you may think that he is like leaning in to like dive towards this woman, right? You might think to yourself, okay, what's going on? Is he like literally leaping forwards? Is he leaning in for a kiss? What's going on? But then your eyes, they'll move down to his wrists and his hands, right? What's going on? Look around his hands. You can see coruscating blue energy from both of his hands. But you'll also notice wrapped right around his wrists are the Undine's hair. I love this. The idea of mystically controlling your hair, using magic that causes your hair, this long flowing, quite beautiful hair actually, to go whipping out around and grabbing both of these mages' hands. Basically what happened is the mage was probably just standing there arguing with this Undine over something, right? They got into some kind of dispute. Who knows who's at fault? There's no way to know who started it, right? But we know who's finishing it. It's the Undine. So you have the mage standing there on this riverbank, talking to this Undine or whatever. One of them's probably insulting the other. Something has happened to the point where they disagree. Maybe it's, what are you doing wandering my wilds? Maybe this Ventress mage has wandered out into the wilds in search of knowledge, right? Maybe this is actually happening closer to Castle Ventress, because Ventress is where Undines are welcome. They actually serve the great magic mirror that exists as the key treasure, and it's a sentient being as well. The magic mirror in Castle Ventress is aware and alive, and it shares secrets with the Undines. The Undines commune with it, so there's some sort of relationship. So this could just be out near the edge of Castle Ventress as well, theoretically. But either way, this mage has come along, and he is getting ready to cast a spell on this Undine. You can see the magic flowing around his hands. In an instant, at just like snap your finger speed, her hair whips out, grabs his wrists, forces them behind his back, and pulls him downwards at the same time. So he's forced into this hunched position while she's able to put the finger, wag that finger right in his face like, nah, son, not on my watch. You're not doing this. It is not happening. So for me, this artwork is incredible. The greens and the blues work so well together, right? You've got the green naturey background, which looks nice. It kind of flows a little into the more like aqua feel of the Undine there. Her hair's got that like bluey green kind of effect to it. And it's not the same color blue as the Ventress garb, but it does still convey, like when you look at her scaly fish body and her hair, it gives you that blue feel, and so does the Ventress mages, but he's got that like richer blue. I just love the minor contrast between the colors of their outfits, and then just everything about this is fantastic. The artwork is absolutely incredible. It fits the card perfectly. The flavor text, poor lost mage, your feet are on land, yet you're in over your head, aren't you? And that's fantastic, because this is talking in terms that would be very relevant for an Undine, right? They spend the majority of their time underwater. They are water-dwelling creatures that are not suited to land walking. I don't believe that they have merfolk legs. You know how the Ixalan merfolk have merfolk legs? I don't believe these have merfolk legs. I think they just have the big fish flippers. So they spend their entire time submerged in water. And the concept of you're on land, but you're in over your head. Normally in over your head would be like you're sinking in quicksand, or more probable, you are sinking into some kind of water. The Undine like to drag people down under the water where they will drown, and then the Undine can do whatever they want with it. The Undine on Eldraine are kind of vicious creatures. So to me, this might just be a scenario where the Undine pops up out of the water and says, you're not supposed to be here. This is not where you belong. And then the Ventress mage essentially goes to defend himself, and the Undine just quickly whips her magical hair around him, binds his wrists behind him, gets right up in his face. It's like, you're in over your head, son. You don't want to be here. So this card is actually pushed up in value to the point where it's almost worth $3 now, because it is actually has organic use in multiple formats. This isn't some kind of investing spike. This is the sort of increase that I am perfectly fine with seeing with Magic cards. It shows that Wizards has done a good job in designing this card. This does not seem like a card that can ever cause a problem for Magic the Gathering. If you look at like the Veil of Summer issue, where they went ahead and banned that in Pioneer, this isn't the kind of card I could ever see them banning, but I can easily see it becoming a sideboard staple. This is the sweet spot of card design. They've done a fantastic job with this card in absolutely every regard. It feels balanced for its cost. It doesn't feel oppressive. It's got an extra niche use in terms of the like messing with blue. The flavor on the card is just oozing in mega levels. The artwork is incredible. I wish all Magic cards could be this much of a home run. Now, I am aware this is just a personal opinion of one man, so I am interested. Does this card resonate the same way with you guys? Do you like the artwork? Do you like the concept behind it? Do you think that this sort of design is the direction that Wizards should be going in? Obviously, I am guided to a degree by the comments that are left. They help keep me in touch with what you guys are interested in seeing. I want to thank everybody for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Love you guys. We are up to 107 channel members. How crazy is that? That's nuts. I love seeing all the shields in my live streams and the comment section. So thank you, my friends. And remember, together we are the sixth color of magic.